Today, I want to focus on something different. We're 4 weeks away from the end of the calendar liturgical year, right? So as Catholics, the new year begins not on January 1st for us, but begins on the first Sunday of Advent, which is 4 weeks away. So I kind of want to have a tradition here of the last 4 weeks of the liturgical year, focusing on the four last things. The four last things. What are the four last things? Well, judgment, heaven, purgatory, and hell. So each of the next 4 weeks, I want to focus on one of these four last things. And today, I want to focus on heaven. And I want to talk about five myths that people have about heaven. And myth number one is very common, especially in popular culture, is that when I get to heaven, I'm going to get angel wings, right? Or I'm going to become an angel. And some people mean that in a poetic way. And some people really think they're going to become angels when they get to heaven. And the truth is that once human, you're always human, right? That our nature does not change. But here's the beauty of the gospel, is that by nature, angels are higher than us, right? By nature, angels are faster, they're smarter, more powerful than we are. But by grace, we are lifted higher than the angels. By grace, we become siblings with the angels. By grace, we worship together in communion with the angels. We worship God together. Grace elevates us higher than our original nature. It takes our nature, it builds upon it, and gives us a higher destiny. So no, we do not become angels. We can become something better than angels, because through sanctifying grace, through Christ's blood, we share in Christ's divinity, Christ's own divine nature. And we become sharers and participants in the life of the Trinity. So that's myth number one. That we become angels is just not true. Number two, a common myth is that in heaven we're not going to have a body. We're not going to have a body. We're just going to be a pure spirit. And this is not true once the general resurrection happens. Once Christ comes again, once the world ends, then everyone's going to have a body once more for the rest of eternity. That our souls and our body crave to be together. They're meant to be together. So that when we die and our bodies and souls separate, our soul has a longing to be with our body, because we're meant to be composite creatures. We're meant to have both a soul and a body. And when Jesus became man and took on flesh, he elevated the physical dimension of our human nature. He elevated what it meant to have a body. So it's true, we're gonna have a body for all of eternity in heaven after the second coming of Christ. Number three, this is a very common myth. A lot of people see heaven as kind of like a giant duck camp in the sky, right? A place where I have all kind of four-wheelers and fun games, and I'm drinking beer, and it's just me and my buddies, and that's it, right? And that's not the essence of heaven, right? The essence of heaven is actually the worship of God, that we see the intense, infinite love, the intense, infinite beauty of God. And it's so ecstatic. It's so mind-blowing that our hearts are overflowing in worship of God. And that leads us to our next myth, that heaven is boring. Some people think the opposite. They don't think heaven is a duck camp in the sky. They think heaven is going to be still, like going to a museum, and they're going to be bored for all of eternity. But it's the complete opposite. We're not going to be bored at all. Our hearts will have this dynamic, overflowing presence of God's love and God's joy. We'll be worshiping God. And I know many people, when they worship God at Mass, sometimes they get bored, right? I can look out into the congregation and it's very obvious many people are bored. But heaven will not be boring in any way. Because on Mass and earth, we're still bound by our human senses. We're not seeing God face to face. We're only experiencing God through the sacraments. But in heaven, the veil will be lifted. And we'll see the intensity of the infinite presence of God. And it'll be anything but boring. Let's go to the next myth, the last myth. And the last myth is that we're not going to have friendships in heaven, or we're not going to see loved ones in heaven, that we'll only see God, and it'll just be us and God and no one else. Actually, when I was in college, I went to a Mass one time, and I heard this priest say that. And something in my gut said, that's not right. And I've learned since then, studying theology, that that's actually heresy. If someone tells you that in heaven it's just going to be you and God only, and you're not going to have a relationship with anyone else, that's heresy. It's wrong. It's unbiblical. It's against tradition. It's against the Catholic faith. That yes, God is at the center of heaven. Yes, the worship of God is the primary, if you want to call it, action or experience of heaven. But that does not take away from us having relationships with other people. In fact, in heaven, our relationships and our friendship with those who are there, those who make it there, will be more intense, more loving, more overflowing with joy and charity. That yes, and this is something to hope for, especially in grief. If we have a loved one who lived a good life, we have a loved one who was transformed by God's grace, we have hope, right? We have hope to see them again. We have hope to experience their friendship. We have hope to experience not even the friendship of people we knew, but even of the saints we don't know. That in heaven, I want to see St. Paul. I want to meet St. Augustine, right? I want to meet Pope John Paul II, right? That I should hope for those kind of things. So as we approach the end of this liturgical year, I think it's good to meditate on these four last things of heaven, hell, purgatory, and judgment. But this week, maybe we could focus on our personal prayer time, thinking about heaven and the joys and the infinite beauty of that experience. God bless.